about the physical geography of Europe. So Europe is often called a peninsula made up of peninsulas. So as you can see, there's a lot of them on this map. So we're going to talk about that. We'll talk about the land, and then we'll get into the bodies of water in that too. All right, so let's party. So wind, water, and ice created the landforms in Europe. So the landscape there's a lot of plains that are interrupted by mountain ranges. So these mountains in the northwest are much more rounded than they are in the south. So in the northwest, what happens is there's a lot of glaciers on those mountains. So glaciation is happening. So glaciation is the creation and spreading of glaciers. Okay, so that's causing glacial erosion. So like Ben Nevis, for example, which is the highest peak in the British Isles, its range extends all the way down the Iberian Peninsula, but it is much more rounded than what you see in like the Alps. Okay, so this right here, this is Mont Blanc in the Alps. This is a much uh, more jagged mountain, as you can see. So in southern Europe, the mountains are younger, and so they're much more jagged. Okay, so they're created by the lifting and folding. So to create the Pyrenees Mountains, which sits right here between Spain and France, there, and this folding also created the Alps, which is right here. Okay, on this map here, right? And then this is, like I said, Mont Blanc. It's the highest peak in the Alps. And then some rivers start in these areas. So like the Rhine, the Po start in the Alps as well. And then you have the Carpathian Mountains, which are often Eastern Europe. So this map here shows exactly where everything is. It's all labeled for you there. So like I said, more rounded type mountains in this area here, but much younger mountains, especially in the Alps. So these are much more like sharp and jagged mountains, and then there's the Carpathians there. Okay, so the broad plains curve around the highlands. So like the Northern European plain, for example, this is this on the map here. It stretches basically from southeastern England all the way up into Russia. So Poland, Ukraine, and Russia. And the southern edge is especially fertile, so that it has deposits of what's called loess. This is a fine, rich, windborne soil that's kind of left by glaciers. So glaciers basically came through and flattened the land out, and it left like this nice soil that is really fertile, so they can, plant a lot of crops on it. Coal, iron, and other minerals have also fueled Europe's industry, so a lot of those glaciers had a lot of that in it too. Kind of like what we saw in the Great Lakes region, or what we see in the Great Lakes region, where there's a lot of minerals in that around there, and that has a lot to do with glaciation. So there's a lot of major cities in this area too, so like Paris, Berlin, Vienna. There's all kinds of different ones. A lot of you know European capitals are on this plain. Then the Great Hungarian Plain is out over here by Hungary, and it's also very fertile. So it has like grains, fruits, and vegetables are farmed along the Danube River. Okay. All right. So most of Europe lies within 300 miles of seacoast. Like I said, it's a peninsula made up of peninsulas. Okay, so there's a lot of water around it. So about 25% of the Netherlands, for example, lies below sea level. So what the Dutch have done is they have built dikes, which are large banks of earth and stone to hold back the North Sea. Okay, because the North Sea is trying to get in that land. Okay, so these reclaimed lands are called polders. All right, so that's what this picture is showing. Is these are all polders here. All right, and they're drained and they're kept dry by windmills. Okay, which is right here. So these guys are sitting on a polder. And the polders provide hundreds of thousands of acres for farming, but obviously, even though they have had a lot of, like they pump water out a lot, even though they do all this, floods are still a threat. Okay, so this is what the Netherlands looks like here on the left, right? This is what it does look like. If it wasn't for all the dikes and polders and that, this right here is what it would look like. So the North Sea would come in here, and it would just totally change the entire coastline of the Netherlands. Okay, it would take out a lot of these cities as well. Okay, so that like Amsterdam would be totally gone. So Amsterdam would be totally underwater. So Rotterdam would be totally underwater. So as you can see, they're very important to making sure that people don't, lose their homes in that. Okay, So it is said, like I said, Europe is a peninsula made up of smaller peninsulas. So we'll talk about all the different kinds. So the Scandinavian Peninsula is in the north here. So that's this right here. And is made up of Norway and Sweden. So basically, glaciers carved out fjords. We talked about these when we talked about um, landforms and that. But the fjords sit like right along the coast here, along uh, along Norway, and there's some in Sweden as well. But the glaciers carve them out, and they're like these inlets. They're really steep sided, like very cliffy kind of inlets. And then they also left behind thousands of lakes. Okay, so they have really beautiful lakes up there. The Jutland Peninsula is basically Denmark. Okay, that's this right here. Kind of looks like a pin, like a fountain pen. But glaciers deposited sand and gravel, and they carved fjords in there as well. So there's a lot of fjords throughout this area here. The Iberian Peninsula is right down here. Okay, it's Spain and Portugal. Most of it's a plateau. It's called the Meseta. And then the Pyrenees Mountains, like I said before, sit right here between the border between Spain and France. And then Andorra actually sits right in the middle of those mountains. The Italian Peninsula is obviously Italy. So that's this right here. Okay, so there's the Italian Peninsula, and then the Apennines run through that, right down the middle of Italy. And then you have the Balkan Peninsula. So this right here is the Balkan Peninsula. So it's like Greece all the way up through like Croatia and Romania. Okay, so there's Romania here, there's Croatia there. So it's like all the way up. Even Slovenia is kind of considered part of the Balkan Peninsula. So there's a lot of countries involved in this, but it's a very craggy landscape. So it makes travel really difficult. And then people move mostly along the rivers, like the Danube River flows right through there. So, okay, this right here is another map of all the peninsulas that I just showed you, except for the Jutland isn't on there, so it's not marked anyway. But there it is right there. So, okay, so climate and vegetation. So climates vary from the cold tundra to the warm Mediterranean. So they have a lot of different types of climates in Europe, and Western and Southern Europe benefit from warm maritime winds. So they get what's from the North Atlantic current. They get the water kind of warms up down here, actually warms up down here in the Caribbean, and then it comes up and it flows all the way up to like past like Ireland and UK there and up by Norway and Sweden. Okay, so they have much more mild climates because of this current, and then the warmer temperatures, they have warmer temperatures than other parts of the world with the same latitude. So if you think about like the you see where like Ireland is, and think about like what we know of like the climate of Ireland, and then compare that to what we know about the climate here of Newfoundland and Labrador. It's much colder over here in Newfoundland and Labrador than it is right over here in Ireland. Okay, and that's because of this current. So natural vegetation ranges from forests and grasslands to tundra plants and all that in this area. Okay, so this right here shows the different types of climates. You can see there's a lot of different climates throughout Europe. So like I said, you get the cold, like tundra, ice cap climate, even almost up here, like in the middle of Iceland there, you get ice cap. Down into, you get all the way down into like Mediterranean, nice even semi-arid, like almost deserty type climates here, but this nice, really tropical kind of Mediterranean climate where a lot of citrus fruits and that grow. So all the way in between, okay? All right, so in the high latitude climates, the tundra regions have permafrost. So permafrost is soil that's always frozen. So there's not a whole lot of vegetation. So you see like on this picture here, you got grasses, moss, shrubs, very small things. But western Norway and southern parts of Iceland and Sweden have a little bit warmer climates due to that current. And then, so they have a marine west coast, so it rains a lot there, okay? They get around 90 inches of rain a year. And then the North Atlantic current brings tropical water to them, and that's what kind of heats that up. And then eastern Norway and southern Sweden and Finland are sheltered by mountains, and so they have more of a humid continental climate, which is more similar to what we have here, even though they are much farther north, like latitude-wise, than we are. Okay, so mid-latitude regions. So most of Western Europe is marine west coast. So the Gulf Stream, the North Atlantic current, like I said, brings warm water from the Gulf of Mexico all the way up to Europe. So westerly winds also bring warm winds as well. And so natural vegetation in this area is mostly deciduous and coniferous trees. And then you have the alpine mountain areas have a timberline. So you have like a highland climate where nothing, like no trees can grow above a certain elevation. And then southern Europe has a Mediterranean climate, like we just saw. So they have hot, dry summers, very mild, rainy winters. And then Eastern Europe has more like a humid continental climate, like what we have. But then the Alps have, like I said, a highland climate, so they have what are called foehns, and these are dry winter winds that can cause avalanches. Okay, so we've seen this before when we talked about North America. So this is the orographic effect, where the rains, they can't get past the mountains, so they fall. They lose a lot of precipitation on one side. So you see that here, like in Italy, and then as it goes down, it gets much drier on the other side. Okay, so that's the leeward side, so around Bavaria, which is in Germany. Okay, so the dry regions are on the other side, like I said, of these mountains. So South and Southwest Europe have more of a steppe kind of type of climate. So Southeastern European steppe is a belt of like dry, cold grassland. So they have like more hot summers, very cold winters, like very, very cold winters. Farming is very difficult because of the extreme temperatures. And then parts of the Meseta, which is in the Iberian Peninsula, like right in this area here, has a steppe climate. Okay, so you can see that on this map here, like this right here and this right here. With Madrid is right in the middle of that. That's the capital of Spain. Okay, you guys, we can do the trivia challenge just real quick. So, trivia challenge. If you want to write this down on your notes, your answers, and then I'll give you the correct answer. So, the first question is, what is the longest river in Europe? This was not in the notes. This is just trivia, so just for fun. Okay, so go and write that down. All right, number two. Two countries in Europe are islands in the Mediterranean Sea. Name those two countries. So there are two countries that are islands. They're only countries. They don't go like into the mainland Europe. Okay. Highest peak in the Alps. That was in the notes. What is the highest peak in the Alps? That should be an easy one. Number four. Which mountain range separates Europe and Asia? Which mountain range separates Europe and Asia? That was on the slides, but I didn't mention it. And the last one is, which four countries make up the United Kingdom? So the United Kingdom is made up of four countries. Name those countries. All right. Let me give you the answers here. Okay, here's the answers. The longest river in Europe, that is the Volga River. The Volga River is the longest. Two countries in Europe that are islands in the Mediterranean, they are Cyprus and Malta. Cyprus and Malta. Number three, highest peak in the Alps. That's in your notes. That was Mont Blanc. Number four, which mountain range separates Europe and Asia? That would be the Urals, the Ural Mountains. And last one, four countries make up the United Kingdom. It is made up of England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. Northern Ireland. There's a little piece there on the northeastern corner of Ireland that is actually still part of the United Kingdom. The rest of it is as a separate country of Ireland. So, okay. I hope you all have a great day. Hope you did well on that trivia challenge. And don't forget to do your processor. Have a good one.